Entitled neighbor breaks into my apartment. Kid takes prescription drugs. Never expected to experience the wrath of entitlement in my own apartment building, but here we go. I recently suffered an injury at work, and after a trip to the A&D, turns out I had broken arm. I was subsequently prescribed a drug called tramadol. For those of you who don't know, tramadol is really strong painkiller and is classed as a controlled drug. I was prescribed a strip of 8 pills. Even though my arm was really sore, I was adamant that I wasn't going to let it affect me. I popped a pill and headed out the door of my apartment, and since I couldn't drive, I hopped on a bus and headed to meet my girlfriend for lunch. When I returned a few hours later and opened my door, I noticed that the deadlock was open and the door opened just by turning the key. I was a bit suspicious as I remembered pulling the door deadlock handle up to put the deadbolt down. I walked in and noticed 2 things. Firstly, my Xbox was turned on, and secondly, my packet of tramadol was laying on the floor, completely empty. I have a quick search of the apartment and discovered that nothing is missing aside from a leftover pizza that was in my fridge. I then go and knock on my neighbor's doors. The neighbor to my left told me that he had no idea what happened and that he hadn't seen anything. When I knocked on the other door, entitled neighbor appears. Entitled neighbor:
I hope you don't mind, we've been having problems with our water and electricity. I let my son into your apartment to use your Xbox while building maintenance is working in here.
Me: entitled neighbor, you can't just break into my apartment, it's illegal. Also, we have a bigger problem.
It's not breaking in if I use the key, stupid.
It actually isn't. Believe me, I know the law very well. And if I wasn't in a lot of pain and not on medical leave, I would consider arresting you. Also, where did you get a key from?
I used the emergency key you gave me last year, when I was looking after your cat.
None of that matters right now. Your son has taken some pills that were on my kitchen table. They are very dangerous, and if he had taken them, you need to either call 999 or take him to hospital, as an overdose of those drugs could kill him.
He's a sensible boy. All he touched was a slice of pizza and a few Tic Tacs that were on the table.
I pushed past her and into her son's room. I get there to find him looking very pale and he couldn't quite focus on me when I was talking. He also had a nosebleed. I put 2 fingers to his neck to check his pulse. Entitled kid: Mom, I really don't feel well. I think I'm gonna be sick and I think my head is gonna explode. Me: he needs a hospital now. Where's your phone?
It's broken.
I rush back to my apartment and grab my radio from my beside table and switch it on. I run back to entitled neighbor, entitled kid and call for an ambulance. It's at this point entitled neighbor is pissed.
What did you do to my son? He's really sick. What did you flippin' do?
Me: Ma'am, you and your son broke into my apartment without permission and your son opened a box that was clearly marked. Also, your son is 10. You should have been keeping an eye on him. It's your own bloody fault. Entitled neighbor hits me in the arm and I stagger back in blinding pain. It's at this point I hear wailing sirens and I look out of the window to see a paramedic rapid response car pull up outside. Entitled neighbor:
How dare you say that? It's your fault. Your apartment isn't kid friendly. Why were you leaving drugs out of your table? Are you trying to encourage people to take your drugs? Is that it?
Me: Calm down, paramedics are here. They are going to help. About a minute later a paramedic enters the room. Side note, I have basic medical training. Paramedic: We had a call about an overdose on this address. Me: 10-year-old boy approximately 35 minutes ago ingested 7.5 mg Tamadrol capsules. GCS score is 13 and pulse is 45 beats per minute. I'm qualified with basic medical training. I'm a police officer. Paramedic: Okay, thanks officer. Let me do a rapid assessment. Ambulance estimated time of arrival is 4 minutes. Paramedic begins checking entitled kid, while entitled neighbor is sobbing and saying how I gave him the pills and said they were sweets. We hear more sirens outside and entitled kid is transferred to the ambulance and entitled neighbor goes with him. I return to my apartment and grab my laptop. I have a camera in my living room underneath the TV that I use for making conference calls. It can double as closed-circuit television camera. I also rang building maintenance and got them to send me the footage from the hallway. It clearly shows both entitled neighbor and entitled kid exiting their apartment and going into mine. They exit 30 minutes later and I show up after another 8 minutes. The internal camera shows both of them eating my pizza and playing on my Xbox. I save the files to my desktop and iCloud in case entitled mom tries to make a complaint. I'll update if I find out more. Best entitled parents shutdown ever. I dearly wish I could claim this was me, or even a relative, so I could claim this degree of clever was in my genes. But it was not. It was a bouncer at a small town club. And when he made the comment that wasn't even the expected cinematic "ooh" or "what?", one would expect just a dead echoing silence from about 40 onlookers. No need for cast. How dumb are you? This mother and daughter pair were trying to get into the club late in the evening. The daughter was clearly young, and actually reasonably attractive in quite a nice, fashionable, as best my fashion blind eyes can tell, outfit. The mother was not obese, but certainly overweight. She had shoehorned her corpulence into hot pants, and a tank top that would be trashy on a supermodel. And friends, she was no supermodel. Badly dyed stringly hair, cheap bulky jewelry, spray on orange skin, and the trailer trimmings. I didn't hear how the exchange started, but clearly those two were trying to cut ahead of the line. The bouncer, this massive action figure of a black man, with an oddly babyish face and the patience of Job, has denied this effort. Hilarity ensues. The daughter threw a few verbal jabs, but seemed to be just mildly irritated. The sideshow hooker of a mother lost her bloody mind, shrieking racial epithets that would curl the ear hair of a plantation owner, and every horrific name you can, or do you care, to imagine. Interspersed with the exchanged "do you know who I am?" and "get me the owner," etc. The bouncer just stood there and didn't react with anything but polite direction. Downright heroic. After a few minutes of this file screeching, the daughter is now embarrassed as hell and trying to pull her mother away. People are gathering to watch. The whole thing has become a spectator sport. The bouncer just kept politely saying, "You will need to go to the back of the line like anyone else, ma'am," or variations on that theme. But now the woman wasn't even trying to argue the point, just squealing the revolting, and at this point quite repetitive insults. Then she screamed that he was an awful bouncer and would get fired that night. Then she tried to slap the bouncer. She missed, quite badly, at which point the bouncer took a single step forward. She fell back with a shriek, and said quite loudly, "Ma'am, at any point tonight have I ever told you how to suck off flabby, obese old men in an alley for £5 a shot?" Clearly baffled, she said nothing but sputtered. He continued, "No, ma'am, I have never said anything like that, not once, so don't tell me how to do my job." Dead silence, like 40 people in the street, not a sound. She yelled a couple more things and scuttled away, with her daughter dragging her by the arm. It's been over a decade, but I still want to go and find that bouncer and buy him a drink. Entitled Ma'am got mad at me for holding hands at the movie. My partner, female 25, and I, female 24, went to go see Lion King today. We picked seats ahead of time online, so we had no way of knowing who we were sitting around. We got there and got situated and quietly talk until the lights go down. Once the movie starts, we start holding hands, sharing an armrest. I take a minute to check my watch, and the entitled mom behind us clears her throat obnoxiously and leans forward and says, "Can you please stop doing that? You are disturbing my child." I of course think she's talking about the light from my Apple Watch, and so I apologize and turn the screen off. We continued watching the movie until she leans forward maybe 2 minutes later and says, "I asked you to stop! You are distracting my daughter! And I shouldn't have to worry about explaining what you two are doing!" And gave us such a look of disgust. It was then I realized she was talking about holding hands. I wish I could say that I told her to go flip herself, but both my girlfriend and I were so uncomfortable we let go and didn't touch each other for the rest of the movie. I saw the kid too, and she wasn't even looking at us at all. I'm upset at this entitled mom, but I'm also upset at myself for not standing up for me and my girlfriend. We did give each other a little peck on the lips before we left, and we could tell that really pissed her off, but we left before she could say anything. Sorry this wasn't satisfying ending, and I just wanted to share the entitlement. This is actually satisfying ending. Entitled mother-in-law was escorted by security out of hospital for impersonating me. Background. This is one of many stories my boyfriend and his mother have of his grandmother, his mom's entitled mother-in-law, Emile. I'm telling it for them. I will tell it from the point of view of the real mom. My boyfriend was 16 when this happened. Boyfriend's mom got a phone call from her son's school that he hurt his ankle and to meet him at the hospital. When boyfriend's mom arrives, she runs up to the emergency room desk and asks where his son is. After a moment they inform her that only immediate family will be allowed in and he's being prepared for surgery. Surgery? She explodes immediately with questions and concerns, but the staff will not assist her and continues to inform her. Only immediate family are allowed in his room, and they can take her name and pass it to his mom, who is currently with him, boyfriend's mom. Apparently you weren't paying attention, I am his mom. Who the hell is with him claiming to be his mother? She knew. Emil had a long history of encroaching on boyfriend's mom, but this time boyfriend's mom was ready to go full Viking, I'm quoting. She began threatening lawsuits and used her flip cell phone to call the police. I am in full view of the hospital staff. Soon enough, Emil was being escorted out in the hospital, and the nurses said upon questioning, she said, "A grandmother is the same as a mother," and left smirking at boyfriend's mom as if to say, "Got here first." And boyfriend's mom never got to see her son before his ankle surgery. It was shattered from a weird volleyball landing and ruined his rather promising football years. Video on the screen tells the story. "Give my son your $600 drone! He deserves it more than you!" First comes the blessing of all that you dreamed, but then comes the curses of diamonds and rings. Only at first did it have its appeal.